everybody. Welcome back to another Devlog. This is week 95. Um, so starting off the week, I had a couple more things to wrap up for the boss prototype and then commit to main. So things like I finished off the the jump landing feedback, like all the feedbacks that should happen, like rocket explosion when you drop the crane. There should be some sort of like camera shake and controller vibration, and I made it so that there's like a distance thing where like a radius, the closer you are, the stronger the feedback goes. So did that for the mine. And then I had a list. Wrapped up a few small bugs and issues that were that I kind of spotted until it was all pretty much like there's nothing left to do, and I finished that up and then I committed it to main. So that concluded the actual the third and final prototype for the first boss of the game. So another milestone completed. And then it was on to the next stage where I went and did some project planning. So I went to my project board and I kind of went through again and kind of like put on my project manager hat and just like, okay, what comes next? So the next phase is like that I had is like system work. So basically what that means is like making sure that the main menu has all the functionality that one would expect of a game. So I went and had a discussion with AI and kind of outlined, and because I had a few of these things in mind, like enabling, having to be able to switch resolution, things like that. But I didn't really have a full defined scope of everything that I needed to include. So I went and did that and really outlined exactly what was necessary, what was optional. I put together a good list about what I should implement for that, and so all that is kind of outlined and ready to go and ready to start work on that. And then I also, as part of the system, there's a couple of things. One is actually main menu functionality. The next is actually working on the artwork for the main menu screen and the level screens, and just general artwork for like Steam that's required for like Steam page and all that kind of thing. So I kind of discussed that, like right now it's like what kind of artwork should I have at this stage for my game. Like, yeah, it's like it's time for like a main menu artwork for sure, and then levels, and then a whole bunch of other stuff. So I kind of like, what do I need as far as artwork assets go at this stage, and kind of discuss that, and just kind of went really through thoroughly and kind of analyzed, what kind of artwork I would need for that. The next thing in the system leg is now that I have two levels, I need to test out like level transition functionality, and that's not as big, where it's like you have to make sure that your game manager system can actually handle that sort of functionality. Now it's a little different, but kind of the same as loading scenes and stuff. So, and a bit of that kind of work. The next thing is more of an idea that's forming, which is like this last thing was this game state save manager, where it right now, like, I can save persistent data in the application, but it's very simple and unstructured. There's not an architecture system that can handle saving and loading multiple different types of data structures or whatever through persistence. So my idea is like a game save state manager, kind of an architecture that can kind of handle an expansion of saving and loading different types of game state objects throughout the game. So we kind of like dove into that a little bit more and kind of fleshed out, what that kind of looks like. in order to get started, and in order to build like a structure for handling, more data like that concerns the state of like the game, like if you pick up weapons, or not just the checkpoint, but it handles checkpoints and stuff, but just a lot of other stuff like when you load the game, anything that needs to happen, like it's a system that can handle it. It's not like this isolated, it brings everything together, like not just this type of data is saved over here and this type of data is saved over there. So I'm kind of thinking about that, and I kind of want to put together a system that can handle that sort of thing in a proper way. So that's what the first epic leg looks like of what we're doing here. So I kind of roadmap this section out. There's more after that. There's a bunch of player features, gameplay, and all the way on to more stuff for AI, and then all the way on to the level 1 first level gameplay testing, the final stretch for the first level, and then we come around full circle back to level 2 optimization. So my roadmap time estimation was that I'd get all this done within 10 weeks, but I'm not too sure. I'm gonna see how far I can get, but there's still a bit of time before I hit the 2-year mark. But so there's a lot here. It's just this next section is what I'll work on, the system stuff. So I started working on this this menu stuff, like enabling and disabling full screen or whatever, but I realized quickly that I needed an actual a new production build at this stage to test this new stuff, especially like the level transitions. I need to make sure that it's working in production on a persistence level, and all this other stuff, it needs to be tested in context of an actual running application, not in an editor application in Unity. So I went and got my alternate project up and running, and I had to fix a couple issues, and then I set it off doing its own build, which it needs to compile all the shaders, which takes a couple days. So while that was building and running for hours and hours, it takes about not 24 hours, but I'd say 48 hours total to compile the shaders. But once the shaders are compiled, it can actually build a new build from cache shaders pretty quickly. So, but every once in a while, especially if you're doing a new, if one project got corrupted, you have to go through the process of building all the shaders again. That's just how it is. But the last time I done a build was 6 months ago or whatever. So that was building. So I turned my attention to the next thing, which is the actual artwork, of the application. And it's kind of thinking more about that. Okay, what do I need for the logo, and how is it going to look, and what do I need for the what do I need for the menu screen, the main menu screen? And I was kind of going through, and I was looking at different fonts and stuff, and I found this one after some time. The thing is, you can't just use this directly, this font, because it's not free to use. It's copyrighted. So, but I think what I can do is I can kind of take these ideas and bring this into a vector application and kind of modify it slightly in order to get the look that I'm wanting. But this is kind of how it'll look, and I think I was doing a lot of research and stuff, and it's once I get this into a vector image, I can actually bring it into Blender and do some cool stuff with it. One of the things I had, this tutorial where you can do this black and gold kind of thing with these lights, or then I was still kind of thinking of doing this sort of this backlight shine. I think that'd be cool. So it'd kind of be like this with like a triangle. Um, so that's the whole logo, and I could probably figure out how to do this, like, and do something like this. And there's like tutorials and stuff. Make it look pretty cool, and that's doable. Like I could probably do this and have some like. Then I realized like doing doing an animated thing is possible in Blender, so you can have like an animated logo reveal for your game or whatever. But mostly I was considering that's like secondary where it's animated. That's just an extra. What I really need to have is I could bring it into Blender, but I need to have like a static image for my assets, either from a Blender file or just straight up from just a PNG or whatever. But whatever I do to it, I just need to have that logo, and that's possible and that's doable of my current skill set. So I kind of turned to the next issue, which is the next problem though. Like it was the first menu screen, right? Like where you have your start game, continue settings or whatever, and then you have your logo. This is the closest image I found to kind of what I'm looking for. And I have this vision in my mind of what the first menu screen should look like, and this kind of helps me out. Like I went to Pinterest and I kind of searched around and clipped around, and this is because it's a custom artwork I'll have to create, but it's pretty much essentially, if you kind of visualize a combination of all these images together, this is like what the end result look like. So like the elements of this one, you'll have like skyscrapers in the background or whatever, and it'll be like perspective, or kind of like this one. And then the stances of the character, maybe kind of like this or whatever, holding guns. And then for the face or something, maybe something like this. Different foxes and stuff, and then just kind of like different ideas. And then so it kind of gives you like a reference, so I can kind of work with this while I'm doing the image and kind of work from each piece and kind of like use these as references and models to create my own piece. And that's kind of the idea, kind of how I did with my level creation, like kind of the look and feel. But the problem, the main problem, I think, that I was facing was that in order to create something like this, I have the tools and I have limited experience in Procreate, but in order to create something like this, you have to have a certain artistic ability, which I kind of lack. I would admit that I'm no artist. Like I was looking at the tutorial of like how he's actually did this, and there's a lot of missing pieces in my experience and knowledge and actually how to create something like this, of this quality, not from scratch, but like, just how it's done. There's a whole load of like underlying knowledge behind it that I'm just lacking, that I just don't feel comfortable diving in and creating something like this from where I was in the beginning. So I kind of didn't want to do this. I was kind of hesitant. I didn't want to, because I want to progress my game and create assets and move forward on the project at all possible. But I also realized that at this point, like I couldn't create something like this just jumping into Procreate with my iPad and just getting started and getting it done. It would just look like a mess, and I wouldn't know what I'm doing. Like, first of all, I don't really my knowledge of using the Procreate app, I know the very basics, but like I'm not comfortable with using that application at all, like I am with Unity or Blender. So the first thing I had to do was, I already had a course in Udemy that kind of it's called this course, Procreate Fundamentals, and it kind of gives you the lay of the land. And I did most of these actually And I actually, the most important part was actually learning. If I go into here, if I go into the most important part was learning how to use the application correctly, like layers, and then also like one of the things was like brushes, like all these different settings. Like if I was to pick a brush and start using it, just get a new one here. If I was to pick a brush and just start messing around with a certain brush and it didn't really behave the way I wanted it to, like I didn't really understand like how to actually make it, like, see, that one's hard line, this one's soft line, like, so I really had to go through and kind of test and experiment and just like, how do I get it? Like some of these brushes, they have like auto follow and some of them are more loose, and so it's just like different tools. Like how do I actually go into the brush settings and figure out how to get, because you need different brushes for different things. Like one of it's like you need a like a pencil brush for sketching, and then you need a pen so you can actually outline those sketches more clearly on different layers, and then you need a fill brush, a solid fill brush, in order to fill out those lines. And then finally you need your opacity brush to kind of fill in different shades as you go with pressure. So there's a whole bunch of steps in order to create, and I went through this, I started going through this course, and while it's kind of like what I did with when I first learned Unity and Blender, I really didn't know too much about anything, but I went through this Udemy course and I really got a lay of the land and did a lot of testing, and I figured out like the most important essentials of how to use this Procreate app. And I'm using Procreate and iPad because I don't want to buy Photoshop, and I already have an iPad Pro with a pencil, and I'm not going to buy a one of those tablets that you can hook up to your PC, because I can actually see on the iPad what I'm painting on, and it's just like you're just drawing right on like you're drawing with a regular pad. So it's just like I already have this tool and it's way better. So this is, and Procreate is like Photoshop, but it's just as good. So I just had to learn the ins and outs of it. So my goal is to kind of speed run like art school in order to get up to this level where I can actually feel comfortable, not as good as this, but creating like a first pass of this, like in a respectable way, and then maybe come in and do another draft later. But first I needed to actually know how to use the tool, the Procreate tool, comfortably. So I bought these other courses. This course is actually more focused on digital painting from A to Z, from beginner to advanced. And I started on this course initially, or like right away, but I didn't really feel because this one uses Photoshop. But I needed a way to translate this tutorial into actually Procreate. So I was going through this course initially, and I was like, oh, I realized I had to go and do this Procreate course first as a prerequisite. So the first day or two, I kind of speed ran these ones, only the most essential parts, to really get a good lay of the land, like how to use layer masks. Like I already kind of knew from other art programs, the concepts, but I needed to kind of figure out where everything was in this particular app, and how to the most important things was the brush, understanding the brush settings, but everything else kind of fell in line until I got until I got really comfortable with like, how to select colors, like layers, layer masks, like smudge tool, and then all these other things like, liquify, hue saturation, selection, important part, like how to auto select rectangle eclipse, um, then transform scale, all the basic good stuff. So I pretty much, I would say 90% learned how to use Procreate effectively. So once I felt good with Procreate, I kind of went back to the first course, and we did this this one looks really cool, but it's essentially me just, with the training wheels, like being, step by step, following along exactly, having no idea what I'm doing, just following along, just like somebody holding my hand. But that's not how you want to be doing it. What you want to be doing in order to get to this point, it takes you have to kind of build your way up to this point with like skill and experience. Like you don't just hop in and do something like this like step by step. You have to be able to improvise and adapt like skillfully, and know these concepts of like color theory and perspective and like balance. And that's kind of what this course does. It really goes through all the concepts, like perspective drawing, light and color, layers and composition, balance. So I'm kind of going through, and I want to spend as little time as possible, but I want to get as much good information as possible, as much value as possible in order to achieve something like this. So what I'm doing, I'm going through and I'm actively going through these videos, but if there's some sort of topic that I like, one example is like layer basics. It's talking about, how to create a new layer and how to, move a layer up. And I mean, just really basic stuff. So in cases like that, I would just like, skip through, and that's okay. But when I get to something that is like relevant and new and valuable, I kind of go through and take my time. So like when we get to these end exercises, when we're creating from nothing, that's really when I want to take the time, and I want to learn the process, get some dirt on my hands, some experience in learning the process from start to finish. So basically these still life exercises are a real like, this is the second painting I've done here, and it's basically just another a tiny step forward where I start with a little sketch with a pencil, and I kind of sketch out the outline and the shape, and then what I do is I go in with the brush and I kind of shade in the colors, different colors. And this is the first time where I downloaded a like a stamp, kind of a stamp brush, and using different shades of dark and light, you can actually get this kind of this photorealistic look going on here. So, and there's on and on where, the next one we're starting to do like light studies, where it's just like you sketch out this vase and then you start to kind of shade in, just a black and white kind of deal, where you're kind of mimicking where the light and shadow is according to the light source and stuff. And it, it's very rough at first, but just like anything else, when you the more iterations you put in, the next one is just a little bit better. It's still kind of not great, especially compared to the instructor, but it's just, it's a little bit better. You're refining your technique, you're understanding a little bit more, you're taking a little bit next step, the next step, pushing yourself a little more, and it comes a little bit better. And then just following along with these courses and kind of going with color theory and which colors complement each other and things like that. So that's kind of what I've been doing. Like I'm being efficient with my time going through this course, but I need to understand this stuff. And in order to be able to accomplish um, something like this, something close to this with like my character in the front. Uh, so that's pretty much what's in store to me for me. Um, in the meantime, my actual project completed building, but I'm going to stick on this art stuff for a while. And at the pace I'm going, I should be able to finish up this whole um, course, and then start in on the last course. Then the last course I think is more focused on character drawing. It actually focuses on like human form and stuff, and like how to do action poses and stuff, and just a little bit more in detail about drawing human characters, and not just not just environment. And this course is a broad overview, but I think that other course goes into more detail of like how to actually draw characters properly, and then do painting with that too. So I think if I do both those courses, I will actually have a very strong footing, and I'll feel very comfortable in order to actually attempt a first draft of something like this, from concept to sketch to outline to painting to shading to detailing shadows and all that kind of stuff. So it's a process, and I think it's necessary to do, because, like I said at the beginning, I can't just jump in here and create something amazing with my current skill set and experience. It's just not going to happen. It'll look like hot garbage. But if I take the time to understand the fundamentals and really get a good grasp and concept. This is the latest painting I've done. I've done the sketch of from the eye of this actual image here. But the next step you can see is like blocking in the colors and then using the layers, and then you go in and it's kind of like painting the models. Like you go in and like finer and finer detail until it looks very like a true piece of art. So that is what I'm doing, and that's what I've done this week. So I don't think I have too much more to talk about. Yeah, I will just continue next week on with and see how far I can get with this art stuff. Once I have that, I'll be able to like create artwork for my game of a decent quality. Not just the first menu screen, but any other like art that I need, because this is not really an option. I can't really just have a game and then just put like low quality artwork from somebody else that's free, and I can't pay an artist to do like a good job for my artwork. I can't afford to do that on a shoestring budget. And if they did something, it might not be right. It might not be exactly what I had envisioned, things like that. So I think I have the skills, and I can get to the talent in order to do something like that. But it's kind of a journey in order to get to that point. So that's the plan. I'll continue working on this art stuff, even though it's kind of a detour. It's kind of like learning Blender in the middle of the game development process, but it needs to be done. Unfortunately, I'm going to try to be as efficient as possible with the time put into this, and only do videos that I find value in. Like if I find videos that become repetitive or drawn out, I'm not really getting any value or growing an experience, then that's when I know I'm going to try to get to that point where I feel comfortable enough to do something like this as soon as possible. But until that time comes, I'm going to make sure that I understand how understand how to know how to do it properly. Just like everything else, I couldn't have just jumped into Unity and just like, oh, I'm gonna create a game, or I couldn't have just jumped into Blender like, yeah, let's just do some animation or do some modeling and edit some models. Like, I'd be completely lost. I have no idea what I'm doing. It's kind of the same thing here. I'm gonna have to actually do something like similar like this too when I get to needing to be able to do music composition for the game. So like main menu music and other not just sound effects, but actually music for the game. Like I have to be able to. I somewhat know programs like Logic Pro. I have the tools, but the piece of knowledge and experience of actually doing music composition for a game, that is another story. Just like this artwork, I need to actually do the background work in order to actually create musical assets for the game without making serious missteps due to ignorance. So, yeah, it's just one of those things that has to be done. So that's enough. That's enough discussion of what I done this week, and it'll continue on next week. I made a lot of progress. I feel comfortable with Procreate now, and I'm getting my hands dirty with actually creating real artwork, but there's still a bit of a ways to go, and hopefully it won't take too long before I can actually produce a reasonable quality asset that doesn't, for my main menu and such, that doesn't look like hot garbage. So that's all for now. I will check back with you later.